I wanted to share from my current residence perspective. I live in Mingo, fewer than 350 people live in that town, and we are very concerned about not only the effect to many of the Mingo farmers' land, and if you look out my backyard, I look down the hill a few hundred yards and you see that land. But a lot of my friends in town have been telling me that they're really worried about the strain on our county resources from this project. They are first responders, they are firefighters, they're volunteers in those positions, and they have expressed really great concerns about not having received any information about what they would do if an event would happen, what they could do, what they wouldn't do, what they should do, what they shouldn't do, and they, you know, they're the first responder. They would be the first on the scene in case of an accident, if an accident's happened, and pretend that's a possibility. So I went to my board of supervisors in Jasper County to express some of the concerns that I and other community members have had about this, and I was basically told that they didn't think their voice had a place in the process. They said that they didn't have a plan or information about what our community first responders would do in case of an accident. And then they also told me that the hardest part to hear was that since there's already so much pipe stockpiled in Jasper County, a lot of pipe stockpiled in Jasper County, they said everybody must already know how to store it. And they said that in a public meeting, and it really cut me to the quick, and it made me feel like the fix was in there. I've never wanted to believe that, but it felt that way. And so what I asked the governor through his representatives to tell me, you know, say it ain't so, basically. So that was my comment.
Thank you, legislators that are here. We thank you very much. And as part of the Bakken Pipeline Resistance Coalition, we want to emphasize, we want to speak to each of you heart to heart, that you are the custodians of Iowa's future. Each one of you carries an extraordinary responsibility and burden to protect Iowa's natural resources from the onslaught of corporate greed in our state. It's not easy. There's a lot of politics involved. We respect that. But we must not, and we invite you to set aside those lesser priorities and think in your hearts, what kind of state do you want to leave to your grandchildren, to your children, grandchildren, and all future generations? The impact of the pipeline on farmland is very clear. It's danger to Iowa's soil and water. By the way, our water is already in very serious condition. I doubt that you would want any of your children to drink most of the water that flows in Iowa, if not all of it, in any of our streams. It's time for us to take back the well-being of our state from corporate influences that by necessity can only think of short-term profits. That's their job. We could villainize them for that, but the bottom line is that's what they're paid to do. If they don't show short-term profits, they get fired. And there's somebody else that gets hired to compete with equity, to compete for money in the marketplace. And it's time for us to recognize that profit motive is antithetical to the health and well-being of the citizens of Iowa and all future generations. Unless you discount the impact of climate change on Iowa. There was an article in the Des Moines Register last year on a study that indicated that Iowa farmers and Iowa manufacturers stand to lose billions of dollars as a result of climate change, the impacts of climate change, and chaotic weather patterns. So we ask each one of you to personally own the responsibility of turning our state, and by our leadership, the entire nation, in a healthier, more sustainable direction for our children and our grandchildren and for this beloved state of Iowa. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonas. So this just came to mind for me. Kathy was talking about how the Jasper County Board of Supervisors didn't choose to stand up for their citizens. And I know we have someone in the room from Boone County where they did stand up for citizens of Boone County. I'm wondering, Homie, if you have anything to share about how that felt.
Hi guys, my name is Lauren Simmons. I go by Homie. Sorry for the voice. I have to say, I am from Boone County. I was born and raised there. My father was a railroader, and my husband is a railroader. We own some land that has some pipeline issues, I guess, gonna come through, and we're saying no. We got together with the Boone County supervisors, Nathan and April Birch, and Boone County supervisors flat out said no, we don't want the pipeline in our community or in our county. Boone County knows. We've had some issues with natural gas line pipes through our lands there in the county, and some other issues, and they understand. We're on the Des Moines River. I mean, Des Moines River, it's right there. It's our source. They understand all the stuff that's going wrong right now, and they know they do not. They are speaking for the people. They are listening to us. And they're saying, no. Now we're here, and I mean, other counties, we were hoping and praying and talking and yelling and whatever to get other counties to listen to us. They're choosing not to hear our words and hear our voices and hear us. What we're asking, please, hear us, speak for us. We are grassroots. That's where it starts. This is what is going out. And if Boone County can say, no, we don't want this pipeline here. It is not going to be good for us. It is not going to bring us anything. It's only going to ruin us and cause hurt on our lands and our waters and for our people and children and our future. Please hear us and speak for us and say no. So, thank you.
Anna, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll say a few words. I don't have a ton to add. I think folks have shared a lot of really powerful stuff already today. I would just, beg of you all to, let's talk about climate change. Let's talk about how putting a pipeline in the ground that stays there forever. I mean, we know, we've seen the contracts, the landowners here in the room have seen the contracts, that once it's in the ground, the landowner takes responsibility for that pipeline forever, regardless of whether there's oil going through it or not. And we're investing ourselves and tying ourselves to a dirty fossil fuel future. And for sort of the foreseeable future, also tying ourselves to 570,000 additional barrels of crude oil being pumped through our state. And as a young person, frankly, that's terrifying. So, I mean, I'm scared for my own future, like what's the planet going to look like, what's our agricultural land going to look like when I'm 40, when I'm 50, when I'm 60. I'm also scared for my children or my grandchildren. A lot of my friends have kids, and I know they're talking about these things too. What does it mean? So what does it mean as a state when we don't do everything that we can to stop something like this? So it's not just a pipeline. I think it's sort of this is symbolic too, right? Of tying us into the future. I don't think any of us can by a lot of things right now, and we could have conversations about those left and right. But this pipeline is just another thing that we don't need. So if we want my generation, and the generation after mine to want to be in Iowa, and to want to have clean communities and a healthy soil, I think we've got to do everything we can to save the
I'm Danielle, I'm on the town, and I am motivated by my young friends here. I also live in the domain of science, and I work for the Department of Natural Resources and regulated petroleum companies. And there's physics that's happening underground that no one is being honest about. The subatomic particles, the positively and negatively charged particles of the soil interact with the metallic portions of the pipeline, and there's this dance that happens underground, and a weak current forms, and eventually that current, in not too long a time, is going to start hitting that pipe. It happens. It's physics. It's the laws of physics. It's like magic, but it really operates under the laws of physics. And soon those pits, those little pits, become little holes, and the holes get bigger and bigger. That is the fate of metal that's buried underground. When I regulated petroleum products, they were in underground storage tanks, 500 to several thousand gallons. Every metal tank leaks. That is what happens. And each site required expensive engineering diagrams, $250,000 to begin the cleanup of that site. That was just the engineering diagram to determine the extent of what they call the Vadose zone of that leaking petroleum. 5 parts per billion of toluene and benzene are known human carcinogens. At that level, they are known human carcinogens. That's part of what's going to come out of that pipeline. And they don't have a plan for it. Clean water, clean soil, healthy wildlife, biological diversity, that ecological infrastructure, that is homeland security. That's homeland security. So on behalf of these young people and my children, I'm begging you, don't hesitate to email me or call me. I'd be glad to help with the scientific arguments.
We only have this room till 3:45, so I'm just gonna very quickly just get context for today, and then back over to Carrie. But Senator Hogue, Representative Kelly, Hansen, Eisenhart, I just wanted to thank you again for hearing us out. My name is Nathan Alhusky, and I'm a proud staff member of Iowa CCI from here in Des Moines. So you just heard a few voices of a really expansive coalition, nearly 30 organizations, folks across the state who are really dedicated to fighting this. So that's what today is all about. Earlier today, we did pay a visit to the governor. Unfortunately, he didn't pay us the same luxury you all have in giving us your time. But we had very specific demands, and we'd like your support in those demands as well. That's part of what this is all about. So, the story goes, the IUB is ruling soon. It's not clear that they're going to stand with Iowans. DNR is not equipped to do their job to protect our waterways, and the Army Corps of Engineers will only oversee 3 of some 70 permits for water crossings. Iowans don't have time to wait for this ruling. We know it's at stake. We know that there's huge risks associated with this, so we ask that you demonstrate leadership like the Boone County Supervisors did in standing up for your constituents. So, in lieu of, or as a result of that, we want to take this to Governor Branstad. He oversees DNR. He appointed the IUB board members. We know that they aren't going to stand for us, so we want him to hold a public meeting before the IUB rules on this pipeline, so that we are 100% clear that he has heard our voices. So your support in making sure that meeting happens would be to us. But beyond that, that's about all I have to say. That's what today is about. Thank you again.
So we got the legislative agenda. I know Representative Eisenhart, you have a couple of bills that you introduced related to the pipeline that I think we'd like to hear about. But essentially, last year two bills were introduced on eminent domain. They were Senate File 506 and House Study Bill 249. We know right now that as they stand, those bills probably would not stop this particular pipeline, but we still support that, and we strongly urge the legislature to expand eminent domain to prevent eminent domain abuse, especially stopping eminent domain for private gain. We do not feel that eminent domain should be used in this case. There is no benefit for Iowa from not getting the oil. It's not an Iowa company that's staying here. Though there's a handful of temporary jobs, they are temporary. And we take all the risk. Essentially, we're getting all the risk. There's only a $250,000 surety bond that's being put up. When spills and leaks have happened with pipelines like this across the country, the cost for cleanup has ranged anywhere from $70 million to $1.2 billion. And they're only willing to cover $250,000 of that. And we know with pipelines like this, it's not a matter of if it leaks, it's a matter of when.
And where and how bad.
And so, we really truly feel that eminent domain has no purpose whatsoever to be used in this case. So we urge you not only to support the bills that are currently pending in both the Senate and the House, expand them to include strong language that makes it more explicit about not using it for private gain, where there's no benefit and where the project is risky for Iowans. And we'd also like to have you stand up and let it be known with IUB, which I know some of you already have, let it be known with IUB that this is not appropriate use of eminent domain for this project. I'll let you guys respond to that before we go into the next point.
Sure, if I can start, I have a colleague that had a heart commitment in 3 minutes upstairs, I'll be a little late. Getting up there. Thank you for speaking up. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being concerned about this issue. I know some of you are affected more directly than others. I appreciate that. I understand people are motivated by different issues on this, but it's really important that you speak up. I am still hopeful that the Iowa Utilities Board will stop the project. I hope you know, there's really kind of, for me, there's really no way to know. I mean, they're supposed to do an independent review. It's judicial-like proceeding. I'm hopeful they'll stop it. If they don't stop it, I hope that the people who are going to be able to challenge that decision legally will be able to prevail. On the legislation, Senate File 506, which was the top bill, we brought that bill out of the Senate Government Oversight Committee last year. And where the wheels kind of fell off of that was the House Committee didn't bring out the companion bill. And by the way, my bill would have been different if I'd known that Representative Kaufman wasn't going to do that. But I felt we had a parallel track. So I was disappointed in that. But keep speaking up. We can pass legislation on the surety bond. The bill I filed on that last year, Senate File 129. I'll go back and see if the chair of that committee, Senator Peterson, can give that a fresh subcommittee and see if we can get that going. I want, you know, this is a big deal. This one's a big deal. I mean, you sometimes hear the line about 40,000 miles of pipeline in our state. I actually think that's accurate, but it's not the same type of pipeline.
And some of the pipes are not even in use because they're just too old.
We only have 2 current existing crude oil pipelines in the state. One is defunct, and the other cuts across southeast Iowa for 12 miles near Keokuk. And neither one of them is remotely close to 570,000 barrels of oil a day. That amount of oil is equivalent to the carbon content from 16 regular-sized coal-burning power plants. So this is a big deal. And you can test my calculations there, I did those myself. But it's a big deal. So we really need to stop it. So you've got the utilities board, you've got legislative advocacy. We might be able to get some traction here. You know, some people, it may take something substantial to get some traction here. But I think there's always a chance, you know, when we were stopping the nuclear power, the ratepayer funding the nuclear power plant bills in 2011, we never expected that there'd be a radioactive meltdown in Fukushima, right? And without that, we probably would have passed that legislation. But we were able to stop that legislation, that was good for our state. So I believe there's a chance legislatively, there's a chance with the utilities boards, there's a chance in the courts. Please keep speaking up and advocating. In the great struggles in American history, not every battle has been won. Not every battle has been won. But eventually we get there. And one of these times we're gonna win, it's gonna be a decisive victory, and then we'll get to that new understanding as a country. And we will understand that for the sake of our future and our health and our safety and our economy and world peace and long-term environmental sustainability, we have to leave fossil fuels in the ground. And I don't know if it's gonna be 2016 or 2017 or 2018 or 2019, but we will get there if you stay engaged and keep speaking up and helping us present that vision of a more positive future for our state and our country. And with that, I apologize. I need to excuse myself.
Senator Rob Hogue.
Do the rest of you want to?
I'd be happy to make some comments, and Kelly presented and some traditional comments. They joined me last year when we put together a communication with the utilities board. But I guess first thing I'd like to say is that I'm presuming that many of the folks in this room live in or near the counties affected by the pipeline. And if there is one single thing I can suggest you do to, in your own behalf, in the future and others who face this situation, and to get the kind of things done that are on this sheet of paper, is over the next 6 to 8 weeks, file papers to run for the Iowa State legislature. I'm serious about that. I think in this day and age, it's much easier, not that it's easy, it's easier to elect people who share your values than it is to persuade people who don't share your values to change your mind. I really do think you need to take it to the people if you feel strongly. Look at the legislator in your district, and if he's not somebody you can talk to or who will advocate for you, whether you're Republican or Democrat, consider running against him. It only takes 50 signatures to get started, and if nothing else, it's going to give you a platform to talk about this issue. So I think in the near term, that's my probably most significant suggestion. So I'm not sure that we're going to get out of the Iowa House any legislation this year that the governor will sign. I mean, that's unfortunately just the reality. What we can do is try to provoke some conversations that maybe get the utilities board to think twice, maybe get the public to rise up, maybe give you some backing as you go out and run for office yourself. And by the way, run for the county board of supervisors too. Run for the soil and water conservation boards. There are a lot of different levels where you can impact these issues. So from the very beginning, my colleagues and I felt the process that the utilities board has to review and decide a significant issue like this is fundamentally inadequate the way our utilities board is involved. We haven't done a case, a decision on a pipeline in decades. Certainly none of the board members on there now. And maybe we're not familiar with what's involved personally at all since, this came up. And unfortunately, the whole process, the utilities boards nationally have kind of turned into, as Senator Hogue talked about, kind of judicial bodies. They're kind of judges. The proponent makes one argument, provides evidence, the opponents counter that evidence with their own, and we'll sit here and judge, which makes the stronger case. And, you talk us into whether or not this is a public benefit, and whoever makes the stronger case one way or another will maybe lean or adopt that. I I don't think that's what the utility board should be doing. Between the utilities board and the consumer advocate, they should be advocates and defenders for the public interest. Standards that they set themselves and a threshold that they set themselves that they expect the proponents to meet. And I don't think that's being done. And I don't know that we can get them to reimagine their role in time. As a body, maybe individuals can start thinking this way and have that revolution. So I guess what I would say in terms of advancing that discussion along as far as legislation, I'm thinking differently about these things. As was mentioned, I've introduced two bills. One introduced this year so far, and I'll be introducing another one. One's been introduced, follows up on the letter that we sent last year, and the utilities board has not denied that they have not said they do not have the authority to require an environmental impact statement. They have told the Sierra Club, I don't know if Wally's here or not, in response to their petition, that you did not allege or prove that our process as it exists now is inadequate to judge these issues and necessitate us to require an environmental impact statement. So it's
What a
kind
load
of
of
a
crap
moving
that was.
target. So what my bill directly addresses that is that would say you may have your own accord required environmental impact statement. And furthermore, if at 3 or more counties and or stormwater conservation districts that are affected by that pipeline petition you to have an environmental impact statement, you must order one at the expense of the applicant.
Yeah, yeah, I like that.
And Bill may, if, like I said, I don't think it's gonna be right. But if it were lightning to strike, it would become retroactive to January 1st, and they hypothetically could apply it to this case if they wanted to.
We can only hope.
The other one addresses the real, I think, potential or, real issue around, if it is approved, it does go on the ground, and there is a disaster, who holds the bag? There have been plenty of examples around the country of failed crude oil pipelines to the Kalamazoo River, being one of them. We need to be prepared for this. Iowa taxpayers, we should be left holding the bag. So this other amendment basically establishes what I call a crude oil transport disaster mitigation fund, and would put a tax of equivalent of 10 cents per barrel on every barrel of crude oil that goes out of the state, whether it's the pipeline, a rail, or truck, everybody can have to pay it. And that goes into a fund. It would raise about $20 million a year. That money could be used to buy $1 billion bond to protect from. I haven't talked to an insurance company. Is that enough to buy $1 billion bond? I don't know. But it could go towards that. But more so, it would go towards the state taking responsibility for safety inspections, roads, bridges, to prevent a disaster, and pipelines to prevent that disaster. And secondarily, to provide money for training for local disaster response, emergency response.
Benefited Mayflower, Arkansas.
So, I don't know what the prospects for this are. I've withheld filing it to date because I've asked Senator Kaufman if you'd like to join me on that bill and make it a bipartisan bill. He hasn't gotten back to me on that. But that will also be filed here in the next week or so. So those are the two areas where I think provoking a discussion, and we can do that. And maybe give you something that you can then take around to other legislators, put it in front of them, ask them what they think. You need some ways to kind of flush people out of the bushes, get them to take a side one way or another. So you can decide then whether you want to run against them. And I think ultimately that's a direction that, not just on this issue, but a lot of issues that Iowans care about. We just need new majorities in the Iowa legislature.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming. I realize that this is a late in the day and many of you are anxious to get home. You probably have now learned that maybe Thursday afternoons is not the best time to visit the Capitol, because a lot of people leave early and they have their various constituents to report to this weekend. I'm Kurt Hansen. I'm from Fairfield, a place where the pipeline is going to come diagonally through our county, through the counties of Van Buren as well, over near us, also Wapello County. So it's very, very directly affecting my district. And I appreciate you guys standing up and coming here and letting the people know how you feel about this project. It's important that you continue to do this. It's not a project that's going to go away quickly. Even if the utility board approves the eminent domain or whatever, and I hope they don't, I think that this is going to be an ongoing legal battle. I also think there's going to be some concerns about whether this is going to be built because of the low price of oil right now. So there's lots of things that are going on here. Putting that amount of oil through Fairfield, through Boone County, whether it be a pipeline or whether it be by train, is a very dangerous situation. And those are the two alternatives we're facing right now, and I don't like either one. So the utility board is going to be ruling. I don't know how they'll rule, but they will be ruling on Iowa law, not what people might be concerned with about climate change and so forth. I'm concerned about the climate, and I don't like the burning of fossil fuels, but I don't think that that's what the Iowa Utilities Board is going to have to make their rulings on. And I'm also very concerned that that utilities board may be politically stacked and not be completely impartial in my
they are
opinion.
definitely stacked.
So those are things that I have very much of a concern about. So I hope that we're able to keep up the fight and keep moving on this. I think that the farm commodities and their prices are also going to have an effect on how many people decide to sign over rights for a certain inflated dollar figure to let a pipeline go through their farm, because some of us realize that farm commodity prices and these people are now suffering a 30 to 50% loss in their incomes. And if you and I had to suffer that in 1 year, that might affect any decision that we might want to make that maybe would not be in our long-term interest, would be our short-term interest. So those are all considerations that I think that we have to keep in mind. I'm writing a bill right now that would try to rectify this terrible surety bond issue. That's extremely low, and that was put in place, I don't know, many years ago when some of the first pipelines were starting to be built. It's not been changed. And that pipeline surety bond, to me, should not be a one-size-fits-all. If we have a 2-inch or 4-inch water pipe running from my county seat of Fairfield down to an adjacent small town like Birmingham, you should not have a $1 trillion surety bond for something like that. It should be based on several things: the hazards of the material being pumped through that pipeline, and the size of that pipeline. So there should be a different number, and that's what this bill is asking for, is some recommendations that can be set up, and then once in place, we can enact those kinds of legislation, that kind of legislation, and then require that this be reviewed every 5 or 10 years or something like that. So it should be for pipelines that are being built and permits that are being renewed, in my opinion. So that's what I'm asking for. We'll see what happens. I'm not sure with the representation in the Iowa House, how that will go, but that's where I am at this point. And thank you for coming. It's important that you keep up the fight. It's important that you keep your names in the newspaper, in the front lines, because that's how people's minds are changed.
I'm Representative Dan Kelly from Newt, and I think that each and every one of you deserves a round of applause for showing up here today and standing up for what's right, because that's ultimately all we can do at this point. The decision is in the hands of the Iowa Utilities Board, and we can hope and pray for the best, and it's important that this project gets turned down. I do represent Jasper County, and to piggyback on to what Representative Eisenhart said earlier, Kathy, as long as you're not running against me, I'll endorse you right now for whatever you want. And Jasper County this summer became kind of ground zero for the pipeline project. And it really was a preview as to what's to come if this project is approved. Pipeline was brought in during all hours of the day and night. The county roads were destroyed in some areas of the county. All the while our supervisors sat on their thumbs, and frankly we have supervisors in both parties, and just assumed that the Iowa Utilities Board had already made their decision and did nothing to stop the pipeline from coming in. And frankly, our economic development team helped in those efforts, and I'm very disappointed in that. As far as I'm concerned, without hearing from what is, whether we like it or not, the voice of, what's gonna happen on this project, before they've even been able to hear your testimony at the Iowa Utilities Board, the Jasper County Supervisors and Economic Development Team were moving forward. And I had to sit and watch some of it happen, and I watched it for only so long, and then I started talking about it. And I kept talking about it, and Kathy kept talking about it. And we had a small group that kept talking about it. And pretty soon, lots of folks in our county were upset about this project. And so my point here is that the Utilities Board is going to decide what they're going to decide. And we can hope for the best. But the morning after they announce their decision, we've got to get up no matter what they decide. We've got to get up, we've got to get out of bed that morning, and we've got to keep going for the environment, for clean water, for clean air, to protect our land, to protect our soil, and to protect our wildlife, because that's what's right for the future. That's the right thing to do, and there's many different ways we can do it. We all have certain ways that we can help in these efforts. For some, it's getting on the phones and being part of the phone bank. For some, it's helping to support candidates who are environment friendly, and understand that climate change is not just a passing fad, it's reality, and we must face up to it. And I'll stop for just a side note. I put a small box of Q-tips on my desk. I set in the front, down in the chamber. I set in desk number 1 down in front. I put a small little box of Q-tips on my desk for any legislators who still don't understand climate change and have to clean their ears out. And Chuck's gonna tell me that that's a gimmick, but he's. I was inspired by the guy that's going to give me a hard time anyway. But anyway, again, we're doing the right thing. We're going to hope for the best, and we're going to continue to fight no matter what the Iowa Utilities Board decides. And I saw what happened in my county, and honestly, if it starts happening in your county next summer, stand up and say this is wrong, and say it loudly, and make sure that your neighbors hear. And Chuck's right. If you're involved and you're interested in this, it's time to run for office.
I actually have a question. Landowners have been flat out lied to, the majority of them. Coerced, lied to. So my question is, how is it that an out-of-state company can come into our state and talk to tax-paying citizens and not have any repercussions about their lives, and then they get people to sign up on something that's called a voluntary easement? That's my question. I feel like our next step is going to the Attorney General and saying, this is the information that was provided by Dakota Access. They gave out a fact sheet at all of those community meetings, and on there were bold, flat-out lies of 100% domestic production for 100% domestic consumption, and that is not the case. So the landowner is reading that, thinking, this is concrete, this is for, energy independence, or whatever they're thinking. It's all under false pretense, and the way I read it on the internet, that is illegal. So my question is, why aren't we questioning Dakota Access on their tactics as a state? And I feel like, it comes back to Branstad in the very beginning said, legislators at the beginning of last session, hands off, it's the utility board's, their process, we just need to let it play out. And of course, it's his folks that are deciding it. So, it's been so frustrating. it's been such a frustrating process to see the wheels that should be in motion to protect the citizens of Iowa. For generations, they've been paying taxes, taking care of the land, and now they're treated like this. It's just appalling, to tell you the honest truth. It just feels appalling. And so, you know, I appreciate all that you all are doing here every day. I can't imagine how it would feel every day to experience some of the political things that are happening. But I guess this is a collective appeal of what would you say would be the next step as far as if the utility board says, you know what, we approve this. What would your suggestion be as far as the next step? Do you have one or?
Legal action.
As far as you're concerned about, you know, representations made or false or not kept, and landowners misled, as I indicated, this is a judicial process. Right now, I understand the phase that are in the testimony, direct testimony is over, and all the lawyers or intervening have a window of time to put in final briefs, final statements, last minute evidence in response to everything that was presented. So, if you were one of those folks who were misled or lied to or signed something that turned out to be wrong, whatever the allegation is, it has to be documented and the evidence has to be assembled. And I would think for it to have an impact on the utilities board, they would have to see that it was a widespread practice and not just an isolated case. You're talking about a really level of organization and somebody putting those on, never going to do that. That's something the Sierra Club or any of the other folks who have been advocating for it are willing to take on. You need to ask them, but that's the process and that's the level at which you need to present that information.
To the utility board. Back to the utility board, after they say, we approve this?
No, now, they haven't approved it. They're taking in final arguments, right? It's kind of like watching TV, except it's all being done in writing. You got the lawyers standing up in front of the jury saying, this is why you should go with us, except they're not doing it out loud, they're delivering written comments to the utility board. And anybody who is an intervener is a lawyer and is eligible to deliver information like that to the board.
Tuesday was the deadline.
Yeah, that's passed.
I guess my question was if it were to be approved, what would you suggest our next step, our most effective next step?
Well, I think Nicole suggested that there was some defect in the process of the application of the law, and there would have to be a lawsuit from somebody. I don't think there'd be any political recourse at that time.
The utility board said that they should be allowed for their deliberations, and said those should be public. You might close something if you get a private session. Do you think that a presence there just of people who are opposed to the pipeline, wearing shirts, sitting there, being respectful, would that be anything that could be influence them?
Well, I don't think it's hurt your case if you were to aid.
That's what I said, being respectful of their process.
I don't mind.
I mean, and what people need to know is that somebody's watching.
Yeah, a visual presence.
Wally Taylor actually said to me when I asked him about what these meetings are all about, what we have to do from one of the he says, if you're there and you're tweeting out I'll say it, stupid things that the IUB is saying, because obviously they aren't qualified for any of this, then if we're tweeting out what they're saying, if we're tweeting out what is being said, that is worth something, to have somebody there in the audience every single hour.
Ooh, I'd love to be there to shoot video.
Can I actually, I think that makes a lot of sense. We're gonna wrap up here.
I just gonna say one thing. You know, I don't, when I say that this board is not perhaps prepared to rule on this, don't take that as an attack on the integrity or mental acuity of board members. Because the fact is, they have professional staff who do have experience in some of this stuff, and they rely on them for advice. So, the process as a whole, you would hope and you would expect that it's gonna be well informed. Because, so I wouldn't go in there expecting them to make kind of
heard them make some interesting comments.
But if they do,
I wanna just add briefly on your comment. I think we need to keep our focus on who we're up against here. It's big oil. And big oil is big bullies, and we shouldn't be surprised that they're
And
liars.
the banksters behind them.
So, although we're frustrated with the process in the Iowa Utilities Board, let's recognize who the true bullies are here. It's Dakota Access. And, let's just keep that in mind.
and I would point out that stand up against the bear, sometimes the bear wakes up and retaliates, and in part because of this, Representative Kelly has a primary opponent running against him in June. So, and I would expect that that opponent might try to pass him on based on this issue. So, if you don't run, you might wish to put your energy into helping them with the election.
Well, I appreciate that, Chuck, and yes, when you stand up to the bear fights back, then I'm gonna be here.
We thank you a lot for coming here and listening to us and what you're doing and standing up. Just to kind of recap, we really would like, though we know it's not, it's gonna be tough, especially in the House, to get things passed. If we're bringing them up and talking about them, it makes it harder for people to ignore, and it gets it out there, so more people are standing up saying, yes, that's the right thing to do. So we really would like to see all of you talking about eminent domain and strengthening that. We'd really like to see you all standing up and saying, we need to have surety bonds that actually cover the true cost of any problems in leaking, and not letting Iowans stuck with a company that, quite honestly, could go bankrupt before they even get started, the way oil prices and
Yeah, 2 words, Mayflower, Arkansas.
We really would like to see you stand up for a better process, because no matter what anybody's thoughts are about these 3 members of the Iowa Utility Board, one way or another, it boils down to 3 people, essentially 2 people are making a decision of this magnitude. 2 people are making this decision for all of Iowa that we all have to live with for eternity. And that's not a good process for anybody, to just have that kind of a situation. 2 people, we would like to see you stand up for requiring, automatically, hands down, requiring an environmental impact statement done for a project of this magnitude. Coal-fired power plants have to do it, there's no reason why pipelines shouldn't have to do it. And we really hope that you continue to stand up and speak out, and we thank you very much.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get in your way, Judy. No, that's fine.
So if everyone who is here with our group today, you just please stay behind for a few minutes. We're going to have a brief debrief. And again, thank you very much.
I'm going to go ahead and take my stream down and wrap it up for the day. So I want to thank you for watching. The next thing will be the Emergency Climate Caucus on the 29th. Unless something comes up beforehand that I'll go live on. So who knows, that something else could come up between now and then. So and thanks for watching, and so spread this around. Spread my channel around, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the stream.